オバマ大統領、ハリス司令官、ご列席の皆様、そしてすべてのアメリカ国民の皆様、パールハーバー、真珠湾に今私は日本国総理大臣として立っています。耳を澄ますと寄せては返す波の音が聞こえてきます。降り注ぐ日の柔らかな光に照らされた青い静かな入り江、私の後ろ、海の上の白いアリゾナメモリアル、あの慰霊の場をオバマ大統領と共に訪れました。そこは私に沈黙を促す場所でした。亡くなった軍人たちの名が記されています。祖国を守る崇高な任務のため、カリフォルニア、ミシガン、ニューヨーク、テキサス、さまざまな力して乗り組んでいた兵士たちが、あの日爆撃が戦艦アリゾナを2つに切り裂いたとき、グレンの炎の中で死んでいた。75年が経った今も海底に横たわるアリゾナには数知れぬ兵士たちが眠っています。耳を澄まして心を研ぎ澄ますと、風と波の音とともに兵士たちの声が聞こえてきます。あの日、日曜の朝の明るくくつろいだ弾む会話の声、自分の未来を、そして夢を語り合う若い兵士たちの声、最後の瞬間、愛する人の名を叫ぶ声、生まれてくる子の幸せを祈る声、一人一人の兵士にその身を案じる母がいて、父がいて、愛する妻や恋人がいた。成長を楽しみにしている子どもたちがいたでしょう。それらすべての思いが断たれてしまう。その厳粛な事実を思うとき、かみしめるとき、私は言葉を失います。その御霊よ、安らかなれ。 思いを込め、私は日本国民を代表して兵士たちが眠る海に花を投じました。オバマ大統領、アメリカ国民の皆さん、世界のさまざまな国の皆さん、私は日本国総理大臣としてこの地で命を落とした人々の御霊に、ここから始まった戦いが奪ったすべての勇者たちの命に、戦争の犠牲となった数知れぬ無辜の民の魂に永劫の哀悼の誠を捧げます。戦争の惨禍は二度と繰り返してはならない。私たちはそう誓いました。そして戦後、自由で民主的な国を作り上げ、法の支配を重んじ、ひたすら不戦の誓いを貫いてまいりました。戦後70年間に及ぶ平和国家としての歩みに、私たち日本人は静かな誇りを感じながら、この不動の方針をこれからも貫いてまいります。この場で戦艦アリゾナに眠る兵士たちに、アメリカ国民の皆様に、世界の人々に固いその決意を日本国総理大臣として表明いたします。昨日、私は加領兵の海兵隊基地に一人の日本帝国海軍士官の石踏みを訪れました。その人物とは、真珠湾攻撃中に被弾し、母艦に帰るのを諦め、引き返し戦死した戦闘機パイロット、飯田房太中佐です。彼の墜落地点に石踏みを建てたのは日本人ではありません。攻撃を受けていた側にいた米軍の人々です。死者の勇気をたたえ、石碑を建ててくれた。石踏みには祖国のため命を捧げた軍人への敬意を込め、日本帝国海軍第当時の階級を刻んであります。 The brave respect the brave。 勇者は勇者を敬う。アンブローズ・ビアスの歌は言います。戦い合った敵であっても敬意を表する。憎しみ合った敵であっても理解しようとする。そこにあるのはアメリカ国民の寛容の心です。戦争が終わり、日本が見渡す限りの焼け野原、まずさのどん底の中で苦しんでいたとき、食べるもの、着るものを惜しみなく送ってくれたのは米国であり、 アメリカ国民でありました。皆さんが送ってくれたセーターで、ミルクで日本人は未来へと命をつなぐことができました。そして米国は日本が戦後再び国際社会へと復帰する道を開いてくれた。米国のリーダーシップのもと、自由世界の一員として私たちは平和と繁栄を享受することができました。敵として熾烈に戦った私たち日本人に差し伸べられたこうした皆さんの善意と自然支援の手、その大いなる寛容の心は祖父たち母たちの胸に深く刻まれています。私たちも覚えています。子や孫たちも語り継ぎ、決して忘れることはないでしょう。オバマ大統領と共に訪れたワシントンのリンカーンメモリアル、その壁に刻まれた言葉が私の心に巨大します。誰に対しても悪意を抱かず、慈悲の心で向き合う、永続する平和を我々すべての間に打ち立て、大切に守る任務をやり遂げる。エイブラハム・リンカーン大統領の言葉です。私は日本国民を代表し、米国が、世界が日本に示してくれた寛容に改めてここに心からの感謝を申し上げます。パールハーバーから75年、歴史に残る激しい戦争を戦った日本と米国は、歴史にまれな深く強く結ばれた同盟国となりました。それは今までにも増して世界を覆う幾多の困難に共に立ち向かう同盟です。明日を開く希望の同盟です。私たちを結びつけたものは寛容の心がもたらした The power of reconciliation、 和解の力です。私がここパールハーバーでオバマ大統領と共に世界の人々に対して訴えたいもの、それはこの和解の力です。戦争の惨禍はいまだ世界から消えない。憎悪が憎悪を招く連鎖はなくなろうとしない。寛容の心、和解の力を世界は今こそ必要としています。憎悪を消し去り、共通の価値のもと友情と信頼を育てた日米は今こそ寛容の大切さと和解の力を世界に向かって 訴え続けていく任務を帯びています。日本と米国の同盟は、だからこそ希望の同盟なのです。私たちを見守ってくれている入江はどこまでも静かです。パールハーバー、真珠の輝きに満ちたこの美しい入江こそ、寛容とそして和解の象徴である。私たち日本人の子どもたち、そしてオバマ大統領、皆さん、アメリカ人の子どもたちが、またその子どもたち、孫たちが、そして世界中の人々がパールハーバーを和解の象徴として記憶し続けてくれることを私は願います。そのための努力を私たちはこれからも惜しみなく続けていく。オバマ大統領と共にここに固く誓います。ありがとうございました。
Mr. Abe, on behalf of the American people, thank you for your gracious words. Thank you for your presence here today. A historic gesture. It speaks to the power of reconciliation and the alliance between the American and Japanese peoples. A reminder that even the deepest wounds of war can give way to friendship and lasting peace. Distinguished guests, members of our armed forces, and most of all, survivors of Pearl Harbor and their loved ones. Aloha. To Americans, especially to those of us who call Hawaii home. This harbor is a sacred place. As we lay a wreath or toss flowers into waters that still weep, we think of the more than 2,400 American patriots, fathers, husbands, wives and daughters, manning heaven's rails for all eternity. We salute the defenders of Oahu, who pulled themselves a little straighter every December 7th. We reflect on the heroism that's shown here 75 years ago. As dawn broke that December day, paradise never seemed so sweet. The water was warm and impossibly blue. Sailors ate in the mess hall or readied themselves for church, dressed in crisp white shorts and t-shirts. In the harbor, ships at anchor floated in neat rows. The California, the Maryland, and the Oklahoma, the Tennessee, the West Virginia, and the Nevada. On the deck of the Arizona, the Navy band was tuning up. That morning, the ranks on men's shoulders defined them less than the courage in their hearts. Across the island, Americans defended themselves however they could, firing training shells, working old bolt-action rifles. An African-American mess steward who would typically be confined to cleaning duties carried his commander to safety and then fired an anti-aircraft gun until he ran out of ammo. We honor Americans like Jim Downing, a gunner's mate, first class of the West Virginia. Before he raced to the harbor, his new bride pressed into his hand a verse of scripture. The eternal God is thy refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. As Jim fought to save his ship, he simultaneously gathered the names of the fallen so that he could give closure to their families. He said, "It was just something you do." We remember Americans like Harry Payne, a fireman from Honolulu, who, in the face of withering fire, worked to douse burning planes until he gave his last full measure of devotion. One of the only civilian firefighters ever to receive the Purple Heart. We salute Americans like Chief Petty Officer John Finn, who manned a .50 caliber machine gun for more than 2 hours and was wounded more than 20 times, earning him our nation's highest military decoration, the Medal of Honor. And it is here that we reflect on how war tests our most enduring values. How even as Japanese Americans were deprived of their own liberty during the war, one of the most decorated military units in the history of the United States was the 442nd Infantry Regiment and its 100th Infantry Battalion, the Japanese American Nisei. In that 442nd served my friend and proud Hawaiian Daniel Inouye, a man who was a senator from Hawaii for most of my life, and with whom I would find myself proud to serve in the Senate chamber. A man who was not only the recipient of the Medal of Honor and the Presidential Medal of Freedom, but was one of the most distinguished statesmen of his generation as well. Here at Pearl Harbor, America's first battle of the Second World War roused a nation. Here, in so many ways, America came of age. A generation of Americans, including my grandparents, that greatest generation, they did not seek war, but they refused to shrink from it. They all did their part on fronts and in factories. And while 75 years later, the proud ranks of Pearl Harbor survivors have thinned with time, the bravery we recall here is forever etched in our national heart. I would ask all our Pearl Harbor and World War II veterans who are able to please stand or raise your hands. Because a grateful nation thanks you. The character of nations is tested in war, but it is defined in peace. After one of the most horrific chapters in human history, one that took not tens of thousands, but tens of millions of lives, with ferocious fighting across this ocean, the United States and Japan chose friendship, and they chose peace. Over the decades, our alliance has made both of our nations more successful. It has helped underwrite an international order that has prevented another world war and that has lifted more than 1 billion people out of extreme poverty. Today, the alliance between the United States and Japan, bound not only by shared interests but also rooted in common values, stands as the cornerstone of peace and stability in the Asia Pacific and a force for progress around the globe. Our alliance has never been stronger. In good times and in bad, we are there for each other. Recall 5 years ago, when a wall of water bore down on Japan and reactors in Fukushima melted. America's men and women in uniform were there to help our Japanese friends. Across the globe, the United States and Japan worked shoulder to shoulder to strengthen the security of the Asia Pacific and the world, turning back piracy, combating disease, slowing the spread of nuclear weapons, keeping the peace in war-torn lands. Earlier this year, near Pearl Harbor, Japan joined with 24 nations in the world's largest maritime military exercise. And that included our forces from U.S. Pacific Command, led by Admiral Harry Harris, the son of an American naval officer and a Japanese mother. Harry was born in Yokosuka, but you wouldn't know it from his Tennessee twang. Thank you, Harry, for your outstanding leadership. In this sense, our presence here today, the connection is not just between our governments, but between our people. The presence of Prime Minister Abe here today remind us of what is possible between nations and between peoples. Wars can end. The most bitter of adversaries can become the strongest of allies. The fruits of peace always outweigh the plunder of war. This is the enduring truth of this hallowed harbor. It is here that we remember that even when hatred burns hottest, even when the tug of tribalism is at its most primal, we must resist the urge to turn inward. We must resist the urge to demonize those who are different. The sacrifice made here, the anguish of war, reminds us to seek that divine spark that is common to all humanity. It insists that we strive to be what our Japanese friends called otagai no tameni, with and for each other. That's the lesson of Captain William Callahan of the Missouri. Even after an attack on his ship, he ordered that the Japanese pilot be laid to rest with military honors, wrapped in a Japanese flag sewn by American sailors. It's the lesson in turn of the Japanese pilot who, years later, returned to this harbor, befriended an old Marine bugler, and asked him to play taps and lay 2 roses at this memorial every month, one for America's fallen and one for Japan's. It's a lesson our two peoples learn every day in the most ordinary of ways, whether it's Americans studying in Tokyo, young Japanese studying across America, scientists from our two nations, together unraveling the mysteries of cancer or combating climate change, exploring the stars. It's a baseball player like Ichiro lighting up a stadium in Miami, buoyed by the shared pride of two peoples, both American and Japanese, united in peace and friendship. As nations and as people, we cannot choose the history that we inherit, but we can choose what lessons to draw from and use those lessons to chart our own futures. Prime Minister Abe, I welcome you here in the spirit of friendship, as the people of Japan have always welcomed me. I hope that together we send a message to the world that there is more to be won in peace than in war, that reconciliation carries more rewards than retribution. Here in this quiet harbor, we honor those we lost, and we give thanks for all that our two nations have won together as friends. May God hold the fallen in his everlasting arms. May he watch over our veterans and all who stand guard on our behalf. May God bless us all.